Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of Parenting Through the Parsha with Rabbi Matt Shapiro.
I was at Shul last Shabbat morning and inevitably was talking with plenty of people about what's coming up this Shabbat, which is Jonah, my oldest kid's bar mitzvah, which is this Shabbat, which is exciting and exhausting and joyous and stressful and all of the different elements that come with any major life cycle event. And I was talking with a community member who had two kids of her own have their bar mitzvah relatively recently. And she made what I thought was a sweet and important point, which was to really focus on the joy of the moment as much as possible. And she emphasized that there aren't that many moments in our life that just of their essence focus on joy. She said there are weddings and there are b'nai mitzvah, hopefully babies being born, and that's about it. We don't get that many of these. And therefore, because of that, how really important it is to lean into that joy and to savor and to hold it as much as possible, which already has had a few of its hazards over the past couple of days, but I'm really trying to lean into that. And that was echoed and amplified actually just then later that afternoon when we had Rav Yosef from B'nai David down the street come and teach at Seudat Shlishi on Shabbat afternoon at Beth Am, which our whole family was at because Jonah took his first opportunity to read this week's Parsha. He's reading the first Aliyah, the first part of the Torah reading, which we read on Shabbat afternoon. So we were there. And I got to stay and listen to Rav Yosef teach a bit as the kids were running around on the field. And Rav Yosef was pulling from some writing that Micha Goodman has done on the book of Deuteronomy writ large. And in focusing in on the Parsha, Parshat Re'eh, what was shared was that there's something very different about how the holidays are represented, specifically Passover and Shavuot and Sukkot, in Deuteronomy and this Parsha, that earlier on in the Torah, a lot of the details of those holidays focus on the details of the sacrifices, the offerings that need to be brought in the temple in order to commemorate those days. And in the pattern that persists throughout the book, Deuteronomy often reframes different elements of what the Torah has previously taught. And when it comes to these holidays, what Rabbi Yosef emphasized of Micha Goodman's writing, there's a specific emphasis on joy, that there should be joy as a part of celebrating these holidays. And joy has a specific element connected to it. It's not just, don't worry, be happy, and that's what the Torah says, and then you move on. That joy is cultivated specifically by bringing people together. That multiple times, it just so happens it's actually the Aliyah that I'll be reading tomorrow. Multiple times when the holidays are described and it's saying that you should have joy, it talks about all the different categories of people that should be brought in. It's you and your kids and the stranger and the widow and the orphan, that joy is cultivated by bringing different people together. People who are often together, people who aren't always together. Joy involves bringing people in. And I think that that's a beautiful thing to highlight and to notice. I think it's a beautiful message echoing through the centuries for us to be thinking about today. I don't think it's an overstatement to say that it can sometimes feel like there is a dearth of joy in the world generally, a dearth of joy in the world in this particular historical moment. And I love this essential teaching that joy is not an individual experience, that joy is cultivated really when we bring people together. And part of how we do that is through these set moments on the calendar. It's not just or not exclusively something that's spontaneous that just bursts forth. It's something that's cultivated. And then because it's calendared as it were, because it's scheduled, that sort of temporal container is what makes it possible then for joy to come into the world, or for more joy to come into the world. And so again, this teaching feels particularly apropos given what we have coming up this Shabbat with the bar mitzvah. I don't know what lies ahead exactly in terms of the ins and outs, minute to minute, hour to hour. And I know, because I've planned a couple and I've been a part of many, that in these big life cycle events with all the details and all the planning and all the people and personalities, that nothing will go necessarily exactly as planned, that there will be one or two hiccups along the way, because inevitably there always is. But I do feel good about what we have done as parents and as a family and as a community in terms of how we've invested time and energy to get to this moment. I feel really good about the fact that we're bringing people together, family coming in from out of town, friends, community members, that we're bringing people together to cultivate joy, to celebrate this moment, and how important that is, how essential that is for all of us. And so when I think about what I really want to be teaching my kid as he's in this transitional moment from kid to adult, this process of adolescence that we're just embarking upon as he is taking on the mitzvot, as we're marking his transition into Jewish adulthood, one of the most important things I can possibly be teaching him is what bringing joy into this world entails. It's how to cultivate joy. And that to me feels like a really big part of what parenting is how to go about cultivating these core elements of what it is to be a person who's cultivating meaning in a world that can feel challenging and sometimes painful. And so what I'm trying to do heading into this big weekend that I know will have its ups and downs is taking this step back. And so I'm grateful that I have this practice for myself of recording this, is taking a step back to appreciate and be grateful for the work that we're doing to cultivate joy, and to just offer up with all of my heart how much I hope I and we and really Jonah can savor the joy of this weekend and have that be something that he's able to carry with him really always, and how holy and essential that is.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.